Hello, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back, technologist. Hope you guys are having a wonderful, wonderful week. So, in today's episode, I know you guys have heard I've created a couple series. So, this series is another story on CT trauma. So, my CT trauma series, which I know a lot of you love to listen to because I have some amazing trauma stories. And if ever you have a trauma story that you want to share on the podcast or you want me to share on the podcast, please send me an email. Send me a DM on Instagram, and I would love to share your story. I think sharing stories is super powerful because it just, makes us aware of just the things and, the types of traumas and things that we see in this industry, in this line of business, right? So, the story that I have for you today is a recent story. I think it happened, I want to say last year. Um, it was a case of a really bad motor vehicle crash. It was probably during, I want to say late summer, early spring, where it happened um, in Illinois, where I currently reside. So it wasn't too far away from the city of Chicago. And if I remember, the patient was intoxicated and ran into a semi and got ejected out of the car. So that was kind of the backstory that we got from the nurses when they brought the patient over. So the patient was ejected out of the car, was not wearing a seatbelt, was intoxicated, and was crashed into a semi that was trying to merge onto the expressway. So the patient was ejected. So the patient was airlifted to our hospital because we are a major trauma hospital. Um, one of the major trauma hospitals just in the Chicagoland. So patient comes, we're doing a full pan scan, of course, CTA head and neck, CTA extremities, you name it. So the one thing that they did warn us about is that the patient had multiple extremity fractures, rib fractures, had neck fractures, facial fractures. I mean, this lady was fractured everywhere. Okay. And what I did notice is that when we moved her onto the table, and she was not a big patient. I think maybe soaking wet, she was probably 160 pounds. And when we were moving her over, all of her extremities just moved. It was like nothing was holding it. I can tell you, and I'm pretty sure if you're listening, if you've ever encountered that, it is the most hair standing, filling view. And to feel it, oh, I could tell you. And that's when I got the backstory of how this patient got into the severe accident because of being intoxicated and not wearing a seatbelt. In a shortfall, this patient could have died like on the scene. And that's exactly what didn't happen. There was other people that were hurt, but they were taken to area hospitals and then released. She was the only one that was very critical and got airlifted to our hospital. So as we're scanning her and we're looking at just all the images, I mean, I'm telling you, she had a ton of fractures. Her face was completely displaced. She had a fracture of C2, C3, C4. There was multiple T-spine fractures, L-spine fractures. Both extremities were completely shattered. Both of her legs shattered, hip fractures, pelvis fracture, you name it, she had it. She had multiple rib fractures everywhere. Now, all in all, while we're sitting there trying, scanning the patient and just going through all the exams, all of a sudden the patient wakes up. They had sedated her and she wakes up and tries to move all these extremities. I could tell you the look on my face and my partner, it was Oh my gosh. It looked like just a bunch of, jelly that was moving around because she was trying to move her arms, even though we had her strapped, but we tried not to strap her too much because we were trying not to, um, we weren't trying to create any more damage to the fractures that she already had. But I'm telling you, it was like, puppets on a string, except it was like jelly. It was probably one of the most frightening things that I've ever seen, and probably one of the most horrific traumas that I've ever seen. And it just was one of those traumas that was just, she was bleeding profusely, and they were trying to get all the scans because they rushed her to surgery after we were done. And yes, this poor patient had all of the extremities and just everything fractured because she got ejected out of her car. Now, fast forward from the update that I did get from one of the nurses, because we had asked, is that she still to this day is currently in an acute rehab because she has to learn how to walk again, how to talk, how to eat, and just how to move all of her extremities all over again because of just the multitude of fractures that she has. They went ahead and plate screwed everything, and she is still currently rehabbing from her injuries. So it's going to be a long recovery for that poor patient. But I can tell you, that is probably one of the most gruesome and just hair raising trauma stories that will probably fucking haunt me forever, because there are some traumas that do haunt me forever that I've encountered that are just super freaking scary. And you just are like, I can't believe I saw that, or I can't believe I scanned that. So, yes. So that was kind of the update that we got as far as this patient. So, my prayers went out to that patient because I just hope she makes a recovery, and life is probably never going to be normal for her ever again. But, you can create that new normal and just, appreciate life as it is and just be grateful. We're just grateful that she made it out of the hospital. So that is what I'm grateful for. So, and I'm pretty sure the patient is too. So that is the CT scan trauma story for this week. So I tend to do this series probably once, sometimes twice a month. And I give you my interesting stories on just some of the traumas that I've scanned and just some of the things that I've encountered in my long career as a CT technologist. So, of course, if you need some educational stuff, make sure you check out my website for CT courses. Make sure come get your CT Learn On. Okay. Don't struggle. Come get your Learn On. So head on over to Instagram, give me a follow, send me a DM, send me an email. Everything will be on the show notes so you know where to find everything. Okay. So thank you for listening to this episode on CT trauma stories, and I will chat with you next week.